Hi, this is Tim Fish, and I'm going to provide a brief overview of the Folio process. This recorded presentation is meant to serve the needs of our pilot schools and partner schools that are coming online with Folio. It gives them a tool they can use to share some information about Folio with their staff and teachers and so on. So Folio began with a core concept that really, at the end of the day, we believe that the most important asset for a school is the teacher. We've always believed that, and now research more and more is proving that to be true. And so in 2008, 2009, McDonough and a committee said there's got to be a better way to develop our faculty. We looked at lots of different systems that were being used and frankly looked at the skeletons of debt evaluation systems that were in the closets at McDonough and said we have to find a way to really build on a system that will truly inspire growth among our faculty. And we came up with four really key principles that we wanted this to be sustainable and effective, what our headmaster called caveman simple, that we wanted to keep informed conversations very much at the heart of Folio, and that we wanted the process to inspire ownership from the teacher. And in order to achieve the first three goals, we really knew that we were going to somehow need to implement the power of technology to carry the water for us, but not replace those powerful conversations. The first thing we did as a group was we looked at research, and we said, what is research really saying to us? And there's so many different pieces we looked at, and the two that really are speaking to us very recently are Susan Scott's work in Fierce Conversations, located at the bottom on this page, and Ed Hallowell's work in Shine. I think are both two excellent books that we would highly recommend that you take a look at. And what Folio strived to do was to balance the process. And one side is the pedagogical skills of teaching, very much the kinds of things that are outlined in Enhancing Professional Practice by Charlotte Danielson, or Kim Marshall's work on revitalizing faculty evaluation. But we also knew that Parker Palmer's work in The Courage to Teach and this more soulful career journey of an individual teacher should also be part of the conversation. And Folio has been striving to try to find balance of the two. And at the end of the day, what Folio really tries to get to is this idea of inspiring informed conversations for growth. We believe the conversations absolutely at the core, but we believe those conversations need to be informed. That when they're not informed, we end up with group hug, we end up with conversations of little consequence, and we never really get to honesty or real growth. And we believe that our teachers want and deserve really good, honest, thoughtful conversations. And so Folio begins with reflection on the part of the teacher. In fact, the Folio process is broken down into five core phases each year. The first one happens typically during the summer, and it's when the teacher goes through a reflective process. It takes the most time during the first summer, but even then it probably only takes a couple hours to do this work. And then each summer the teacher would update his or her profile on Folio. When a teacher logs into Folio, this is really the first screen that shows you what Folio looks like. The teacher's brought to a dashboard page, and on that dashboard page, he or she is able to see their milestones for the year. They're able to see in the lower right corner who can see his or her page. In this case, Marie Curie is Helen Robinson, Helen is a 7th grade science teacher. Marie Curie is the science department chair at the school, and she is Helen's direct supervisor. And then George Bailey is the head of school in the school, and so George is also able to see her page. Folio is set up with kind of a hierarchical viewing permission so that the head of school can see everyone's page and going down depending on who your supervisor is. Helen would then move to her profile where she would update. The first area is called About Helen, and it's where she almost kind of puts an online resume, where she went to school, what job she's had, and so on. We also have an area called the Journey Statement. Other schools want to call this something different. Some call it a personal statement or a philosophy statement or an educational statement. But this is where Helen sort of writes, if you will, her Carney Sandoz statement about what she believes and why she teaches. Folio also gives Helen the ability to have an accomplishments area, things that she's done that she's particularly proud of, that she would like to have people in the school know about. 5 words is how Helen would describe herself in 5 words. And while this seems like it might just be a silly throwaway, it's actually opened the door to very powerful conversations. When you talk to Helen about how she sees herself as compassionate or loyal or curious, that really opens up a conversation with her that's very different than typical evaluation systems. And then goals are very important to Folio. It's a place where we have both a goal and action statements. Goals might extend over multiple years, where action statements really are meant to be accomplished within this academic year, and hence the checkbox capacity with action statements. So once the teacher has done this reflective work, the conversations really begin. And there's really two main conversations that happen in each year with Folio. The first conversation is a goals conversation that happens typically in September or October, and that gives a teacher an opportunity to really listen to and hear and get a chance to really set a course for the year, and really to make themselves accountable, and also by saying them out loud, they'll be accountable to someone else on those goals. And at the end of the year, everyone has a summary conversation. And these are the two things that we believe should be taking place every year with everyone. The middle of the year is where we have what we call the Folio Focus, where that teacher might be going through a classroom observation process. He or she might be doing a curricular project with some peers, or that teacher may actually have a year off. And so this is where you can get a little bit of the cyclic nature that's very present in a lot of schools, but we believe that in fact it should be a modified cycle, that everyone should have a goals meeting and a summary conversation, but your middle of the year may be when you actually have the year off. But after these meetings, after these conversations, Folio provides a place for a supervisor and the employee to leave notes. So after a goals meeting, in this case, Marie Curie left a meeting note after a goals meeting, and then Marie had the opportunity to come back in and to leave a comment about that, which we think is a really helpful piece that gives Marie the ability to, or gives Helen the ability to always to leave her thoughts on that conversation. We also believe that informing the conversation is a way of opening the door to visibility and honesty. And so we do that in a couple ways. One way is we use this thing called Spotlight that allows any teacher or staff member in the school to send a spotlight to any other teacher about something that they've seen that person did that was very positive. And the sending of these notes is a wonderful way for the community to feel very engaged and to help in to really praise each other for the work they're doing. The other thing that's very important is classroom observations. And we have a process built into Folio where you essentially leave a lesson summary, commendations, and recommendations on a classroom observation. And it may be informed by Danielson or Marzano's work with their rubrics, but we don't have a specific checkbox kind of thing for those rubrics in Folio. Projects that people are working on is another way to inform the professional practice that teacher is going through. And then lastly, we have the feedback components of Folio. And feedback can be a very important piece. Folio has the ability to do student feedback, peer 360 feedback, or even feedback to supervisors. And Folio gives the teacher the ability, for example, to look at their feedback broken down by gender, or even having your feedback compared to an anonymous peer group. We have found that feedback is something that takes some real time to implement. It makes the Folio process in the school a little bit more time intensive, and it also, you really have to think long and hard about how you're going to ask students for feedback and prepare them very well to give it. This is the 5 words report that allows a school to quickly see how their teachers describe themselves, which we found to be very interesting. And then lastly, if you're using feedback, the school is able to look at one department or one division compared to another department or another division and really see if there's some trend lines that are interesting and should be studied. One of the most powerful parts about Folio, from my perspective, is that it has this thing called roll call. And roll call allows you to essentially, as a supervisor when you log in, to see the people that you're responsible for and to see how they're progressing through the Folio process. So in this particular case, if we look at Helen Robinson, this is Marie Curie's page, middle school science department chair, and she's supervising 10 people, one of them being Helen Robinson. And Helen, we can see, has finished her profile. It's at 100% complete. They had a goals meeting on October 24th, and if Marie wanted to, she could click on View Notes to look at that. Helen is up for classroom observation this year, and that first observation took place on November 16th. She could click Create Observation if there was a second observation, for example, with new teachers. She also sees that Helen is working collaboratively with some peers on a project on integrating probes into biology. And she's also creating a year-end summary report from that work that she'll have to do by August 10th. She can also see that Manish Usman has not done near the work he needs to do. His profile's not complete, he hasn't had his goals meeting yet. And so this is really something that allows not only Marie to see where she is in the process, but also to allow the administrator in the school who oversees the process, whether that be the assistant head or dean of faculty, to keep track of how everyone's doing and moving forward with this. And we believe that keeping everyone track is an essential nature of this process. So what lessons have we learned in Folio? Well, we've learned a lot. And this nonprofit project is going to continue to learn lessons as it enters into more and more partnerships with other schools. What we found is that this fundamentally isn't a software problem, that essentially schools need to do this work and have these conversations, and that the conversations are the key and software merely just carries the water. We've also learned that the process should adapt to each individual school, that while we think Folio is a big step in the right direction, each school is going to want to adapt it to their own needs, and that adaptation process is going to be something we're going to need to be doing to help the software continue to evolve. But at the end of the day, the most important thing we've learned is that we truly do believe that faculty and staff are our most important asset, and we need to be doing everything we can to build, support, and enhance these folks so that everyone has the potential or can really realize their potential in the school community. Thanks so much. If you need to get in touch with me, don't hesitate. Send an email to tfish@mcdonough.org. Bye-bye.